Welcome to bicycle maintenance with a fairly average mechanic, the fairly average mechanic being me. And today we're going to do the big one. Well, not really the big one, but a big one, one of the big ones. And I'm going to show you how to fix a puncture, or to be more precise, how to change your inner tube. Fixing a puncture would probably mean patching the hole in your inner tube, and I'm not going to be showing you how to do that. And frankly, I really don't think you should bother even trying. I know there are lots of generally old school cyclists who swear by patching their inner tubes, and in the end their inner tube is made up almost entirely of patches. My experience has been with fairly limited, i.e. no success in patching an inner tube, and frankly life even under coronavirus is too short to patch an inner tube. They're not very expensive. Carry a spare inner tube. If you get a puncture, change your inner tube, throw the old one away. Take it home and throw it away. Don't throw it away at the side of the road. So it's about changing an inner tube, not really about fixing a puncture. Now, we start off with a wheel, and here is a wheel. Incidentally, this tyre and this tube don't have a puncture. As you can see, it's quite a hard pumped up tyre. So we're going to have to pretend for this element of the video that this has a puncture in it. So you're riding along and suddenly your bike starts to wobble. You might hear a noise like a bang, or you feel your tyre going flat and you think, oh fuck, I've got a puncture. So you stop at the side of the road in a safe place. If you can pull in slightly into somebody's drive, not obviously trespassing on their property, but certainly pull off at the side of the road in a safe place. Don't try and fix a puncture just in the middle of the road. That's not very safe. So we take our plastic cap off the valve, and you will, depending on the puncture, it might be a slow puncture, it might be a very fast puncture, all the air might be out, but let's say all the air isn't out of the tyre, so we're just going to release. That's a satisfying sound, isn't it? Except when it happens while you're riding along. So we're going to release the air from this tube. So it might already be released. If not, we're going to release the rest of it until it's pretty flat. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to break the seal between the tyre and the rim. Now, if you are using tubeless tyres, and there is a video in this series about tubeless tyres, and you do have to put an inner tube into your tubeless tyre. If you watch that video, you'll see why that might sometimes be necessary. Breaking the seal on the between the rim and a tubeless tyre can be very difficult. It's generally less difficult on a normal wheel with a normal tyre, but let's see how we get on. Now, we hold the, sorry, I'll just change position slightly. So we're holding the wheel and we're pressing with our thumbs like that. You may have heard a little click. Sometimes it's quite a loud noise, and we're just pushing that tyre away from the rim. Can you see that? Pushing it away from the rim, and we've done it on that side, and now we'll did you hear that click? That was breaking the seal. So it's worked fairly straightforwardly, fairly easily on this particular tyre and wheel. It is not always that easy and that simple, and sometimes you need quite a bit of strength to do it. Sometimes you just push with your thumbs and you're lucky and it breaks open. Okay, so we just release a bit more air there. That's it. Going down like that, and I'm going to undo this knurled nut here from the valve, and as you can see, my fingers are quite dirty already. Now, in order to change your inner tube, you need some tools, and you need some tyre levers. These are a set of these were Cycling Plus. I think they actually came free with a cycling magazine. This is also another one. This is also free with Cycling Plus. This is a rather more expensive set by Park Tools, which have a metal tip. These are, if you like, workshop tyre levers. You can get tyre levers pretty cheaply. You can get them in Lidl. Sometimes they can be quite brittle plastic. You don't really want the brittle plastic ones, and sometimes they're metal. Metal can be good, although it can be quite easy to damage the inner tube. So these type with a strong, preferably not brittle plastic, are quite good, and you can get them pretty cheaply. Now, if you look at various videos, some of them say start by the valve, some of them say start opposite the valve. I'm going to start opposite the valve, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the kind of slightly hooked element of the lever under the bead of the tyre like that, and then use that slotted element of the lever to put it on the spoke. You can see that holds it steady. We then take a second tyre lever, put it under the bead of the tyre again like that, and again like that, and again like that, and then we're just working it round the tyre, releasing it all the way like so. Alright, so now come round to the end, and that has released the tyre completely on this side of the rim. You see that? Now, we then want to remove the inner tube from inside the tyre. Now, when you get a puncture, it's generally, not always, caused by a flint, a piece of glass, a little bit of stone, something like that. And what's happened, of course, is that it's pierced the tyre and then gone into the inner tube. Now, sometimes it's easy to see because there's a flint or something sticking out of the tyre, but it's not always easy to see. When you remove the tube, like so, and then pull it all the way out from inside the tyre, you will either see where the puncture is, or you can put some air in the tyre and that will show you where the air is coming out. Now, if you remember where that air was coming out of the tube, you can then have more success in finding what might be a piece of glass or a piece of flint in the tyre itself. So we're going to completely remove the tyre from the rim, and that can sometimes again be a bit awkward. It worked fairly smoothly there, and now we have the tyre off the rim completely. You will see lots of cyclists, more experienced cyclists, change a puncture by leaving the tyre on and putting in a new inner tube, and you can do it that way, but for the purposes of this video I'm taking the tyre off completely. So we've removed the tyre, and then what you need to do is have a look at the tyre. So I'm having a look at the tyre and running it through with my fingers. Now, you do need to be careful, obviously. It could be a little bit of glass or so, and if you're rubbing your fingers along there trying to find it, you could easily cut yourself. So do be careful doing that. As I say, it might be easy to see where the bit of flint is, or the bit of glass, or the bit of stone, or the bit of nail, or bit of metal, whatever it is that has caused the puncture. Sometimes it's not very easy to find, and you have to turn the tyre over, turn it inside out, and check through the tyre to find it. The other kind of common reason for a puncture is what's called a pinch flat, and that's where you go over a stone or something, and the tube is squeezed hard against the rim, and that pinch causes a puncture. And therefore you might be trying to find a stone or a flint or something in your tyre and you can't find it, and the reason is because it's a pinch flat. So we've taken the tyre off completely, we've taken our inner tube out completely, and what you should do is make sure all of the air is out of this tube, and then you can fold it up tightly, put it in your pocket, and either when you get home, fix that puncture with a patch kit if you want to do that. As I say, I think life is too short to do that, so generally I throw that away. But, you know, it's up to you, obviously. Now, having found where the piece of flint or glass is and removed it from the tyre, we then want to put our tyre back on the rim. Now, occasionally, and I suppose it's a little bit counterintuitive, you think the way to replace a tube is to put the tube around the wheel and then put the tyre on top. Now, I know it's very easy to laugh at people who do that, but there's no particular reason why you shouldn't know that's not the right thing to do until you've learnt the correct way and perhaps watched my videos. So you do not put the tube on first, you put the tyre on first. Now, if you're an old school cyclist or you're obsessed with these kind of things, or you suffer from OCD, nothing wrong with suffering from OCD, by the way, I'm not making fun of people who suffer from OCD, but a lot of cyclists think that the logo on the tyre should match where the logo is on the wheel, or it should match where the hole is for the valve. So let's just put the tyre on like that, and again I'm going to move around so you can see, and what I'm doing is putting one side of this tyre on first. All right, so the tyre is on completely on this side of the wheel. Okay, can you see? Now, that went on pretty smoothly, pretty easily. This is a Pirelli tyre on a DT Swiss wheel. Lots of tyres do not go on easily, they do not go on smoothly. It can be a real struggle. You might need to use a lot of strength to get it on. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're unlucky. Continental tyres generally tend to be fairly difficult, but this, as I say, is a Pirelli tyre and it went on pretty smoothly. Okay, so we've got one half of the tyre in. Now, let us assume, remember, we have to assume that this tube is not the tube that has a puncture in it. This is a new tube. So we have a new tube and we're going to put this tube in onto the wheel. Now, if you're in the workshop and you have some baby powder, such as this is Johnson's baby powder. And now a word from our sponsor. Johnson's baby powder, to put powder on your baby or to use in the workshop when repairing or replacing an inner tube. Other brands of baby powder are available. By the way, do not, if you run out of baby powder, think you can instead use Johnson's baby oil, because that leads to rather unpleasant and filthy results. So talcum powder, what is talcum powder useful for? Well, I'll show you in a minute. The first thing I'm going to do is to put the valve in the hole of the wheel. Not sure where that is now. Can't find the hole. Story of my life. Right, I've found the hole and I put the valve in the hole like that, and I find where I've put my knurled nut and I just put that on there fairly loosely. I'm not going to do it up too tightly. All right, now let's assume we're not in the workshop, we're at the side of the road, so we haven't got any talcum powder. If we were in the workshop, what we would do is put a bit of talcum powder on our hands, run the tube through our hands, and that makes it easier to put the tyre on over the tube. But let's assume we're out at the side of the road in a safe place, we haven't got any talcum powder, we're just putting the tube into the tyre. Now, it's a good idea to take your pump. Here is a pump. This is a track pump, obviously, what's called a track pump. This is a big pump that you might use in the workshop. Obviously, if you're out on the road, you'd have a much smaller pump. But it's a good idea to put a bit of air in the tube. So let me just put that on there and just like so. And now take that off, tighten up the valve, put put the track pump to one side, and when we have a bit of air in the tube, it tends to go in a bit more easily inside the tyre and against the rim, like so. All right. Now, we want to seat now this second half of the tyre, and I'm going to start where it's near, sorry, I'll turn it round like that. I'm going to start where it's near the rim, sorry, not near the rim, near the valve here. Sorry, I don't know if you can see that. The valve is there, so I've started there, and now I'm putting the remains of the tyre on. And the way I'm doing it is I've got my hands at 2:45, and I'm using my thumbs to work the tyre round the rim like this. Now, when we get to this final part here, and there's about a foot here still to do, it gets a lot harder. Now again, depending on the tyre and the rim, some tyres can be incredibly difficult to get back onto the rim for this final bit. Some others go on fairly easily. This Pirelli tyre tends to go on fairly easily, and I'm working it round like so with my hand. I'm trying to maintain my temper, and there it is. It's all slipped in fairly nicely, as they say. Now, there are a couple of tools that you can use for that final element. First thing I should say is it's best, if you can avoid it, I accept it's not always possible. If you can avoid it, it's best to avoid using a tyre lever to put that final bit of tyre on, because it's very easy to pinch the inner tube against the rim and thereby just cause yourself another puncture. But sometimes you don't have any choice. There are two tools you can use. This tool is one that produced by X Tools, and I have done a separate video on the use of this tool. And basically this tool goes against the rim here, and then that bit hooks under the tyre and it pulls that bit of the tyre back onto the final section of rim, and it does work quite well. But you can't really carry that tool around with you in your back pocket. Now you can carry this tool, and this is called a tyre key, and in the video that I made I rather fluffed it up because I couldn't really work out how to use it properly. I have since used it properly, and again it does work, and you could put this in your back pocket quite easily if you think you're going to have that kind of problem. But this tyre seated quite well back on the rim. It's a good idea to push the valve a few times up into the tyre to make sure that's properly seated. The other thing you need to make very sure of is that the tyre is properly seated against the rim all the way round. If it isn't, and you have a bulge, then as you pump that up, the inner tube will start to poke out a bit, which is, if you see it, that's fine. If you don't see it and you put the wheel back into your bike and you ride along, then you're likely to get another puncture, and that's going to make you really arsey, especially if you haven't got another inner tube. So just assume that that hasn't happened. You've checked this all round. It's a good idea to put some air now. Well, we're going to pump it up, so let's assume that you've got your pump out on the road, and we just put it on there. I'm just using the track pump here. Yeah, that just wasn't attached on properly, but anyway, I've put a bit of air in. So when you put some air in, it's a good idea to bounce it up and down on the ground like that, turn it round just to make sure that the tyre is properly seated against the rim. You can then pump it up fully all the way, put it back in your bike, in your bike, and you're ready to go. The alternative to using a normal bicycle pump, either a track pump or a little pump, of course, is to use this, which is a CO2 gas canister. I won't waste my gas just for the purposes of this video. But again, this is a CO2 gas canister with a valve connector at the top. You attach this to your valve, you screw the canister in, which opens a little hole at the top there, and then you open the valve and all the air, all the CO2 comes up and inflates your tyre. And they do work very effectively, although they generally only inflate one tube. So if you have two punctures while you're out on the road, it's really very important that you carry a pump as well as one of these canisters, or you carry two of these canisters. So that worked pretty smoothly actually, and remarkably smoothly for me, and as is the way with these bicycle maintenance with a fairly average mechanic, usually something goes disastrously wrong. But surprise, surprise, perhaps I'm getting better and perhaps I'm turning into a slightly above average mechanic. That one actually worked perfectly. So I hope you enjoy that and stick around for more videos by bicycle maintenance by a fairly average mechanic. Hope coronavirus isn't causing you too many problems and you and your family are getting on okay. Thanks for watching and see you next time.